Heyo everybody, Haku here with that HaQ&A 81, I guess. HaQ&As are back, but I really thought about calling this like Season 2, Episode 1, and continuing on from there because it's been so long since I've done weekly Q&As and I want to do them weekly again. Uh, but yeah, I was like, no, that's because that would just make the title even longer. I'm just gonna stick with calling this the 81st and jump straight back in where we left off, sort of. So, for those of you, since I haven't had any of these videos in a long while that aren't terribly familiar with them, it's basically just a chill video where I try to be chill and casual in all my videos. I try to convey the information that I'm getting across, but still, not take it too terribly serious to where it's robotic or forced or feels too scripted or anything. I like to keep things as casual and comfortable and chill as possible. It's just sort of the way I am. But this especially so, the Q&As especially so, is just a place for me one time a week to do something that I think is really good for both myself and the channel and just community building, which is come together and just talk to you all about topics you want me to talk about. And it's helpful in a ton of ways because it's like this thing where I'm doing videos on like Tower of God every single week, One Piece, Boku no Hero Academia every single week, and so on and so forth. So it's like sometimes when these topics come up, I don't really have time to do a full 5-minute video on it, record, edit, take notes for all that, and make a thumbnail and do all that for one 5-minute video on one of these topics. But can I talk about it for 5 minutes just off the top of my head, just to discuss it during a Q&A with a bunch of other topics? Yeah, that's much easier on me. So yeah, it's one of these things where there are so many topics that I just don't have time to make their own videos on, but I can use this video to talk about and discuss all those. And because I'm using your comments and questions and suggestions to do it, it kind of I don't know, it's exactly what you want to see. You are the driving force behind what I decide to talk about or whatever. So for this one, I'm really going to have to get back into the pacing of things. Since I haven't done one so long, I'm not sure how many comments being answered or discussed is going to add up to how much time. So I'm going to have to find my pacing again. So this one might be a little bit on the shorter side. I tried to err on the side of being a little bit shorter. I have 4 pages of comments and bullet point notes on what I want to say about them. About the topics and all that. I've got 4 pages of notes, 2,000 some words or something. So I'm hoping it's maybe a little bit under an hour. That's kind of the time I would shoot for. I think I want these videos to be around an hour long. But yeah, it's going to take me a little while, maybe a few weeks to get my pacing back into things. Also, I wanted to, before I get into the different series, I wanted to talk about the Patreon for a little bit and the voting and poll on what I'm going to be covering on Sundays as part of that. And also talk about my top 3 favorite anime and manga main characters, but I'll get to that after I get to the Patreon stuff. But for those of you that don't know, again, more information about these HaQ&A videos since there haven't been any for a while, and I'm assuming a lot of you are new to them. So that you don't have to sit through and sift through well, I care about Tower of God and I care about this series, but I don't care about this one, don't care about that one. Instead of just mixing them all in together, I separate them by series, and I'm gonna have, I put title cards between each series so that you can be okay, new title card, that means he's moving on to a different series, a different subject. And also in the comments, I always put a list of timestamps that you can click on. It'll take you to when I get to that series. So again, if you don't watch or read, say, One Piece, for example, you can just skip past that one by clicking on the next timestamp. Or if you specifically want to go to, say, Magical Girl Raising Project, you can specifically go to that by clicking on that timestamp. So I've got a few series for this video lined up and a few comments on each. I think the most comments I took for any was Tower of God, which is obviously usually the longer one. unless something big is happening with another series like Magical Girl Raising Project. But that could be different because I'm covering a lot of series now that I wasn't covering back when I did these weekly in the past. So who knows what other series could be on the come up when it comes to discussion here. Anything else that I needed to say here? I don't know. Sometimes I forget things, and that's another thing these videos are good for, because I can just talk to you at the beginning of them. So if I need to update you on something that I've forgotten to update you on, then I can just do it here. But speaking of updates, that's something that I wasn't planning to talk about, but I've been doing better and been trying to do better at keeping you all updated the best I can on the community tab here on YouTube without spamming it too much. So I probably post a little bit more often updatey stuff on Twitter or Discord, but I try to be better with the community tab here. So yeah, let's talk about the Patreon real quick for a second. So I'll try to make posts there to update people as often as possible too. But again, it's something I'm very new to, so you're probably going to have to give me a little bit to get used to it and figure out what I'm doing. And I think the easiest way to do the polls for filling in a series on Sunday is, or earlier Sunday. I'm still going to be trying to do the Tower of God reaction Sunday nights, even though I haven't really been doing them then lately. I've been doing them Monday mornings instead. But I'm still going to try to do them then. But I'm going to be trying to post earlier in the day on Sunday for a new series, and the patrons are going to get to decide on what the series is. I'm going to take suggestions from patrons and then put those suggestions into a poll, let patrons vote on it. And the first poll is going to be this week. I guess I'm going to go from here until next Thursday, and then maybe next Sunday will be my first video on that series. And I'm going to have the polls fall in line with the anime season markers, because that's just the best way to organize my schedule for the channel, really. So whichever one I cover whichever one wins this first poll, I'm going to cover it until, I guess, the next season would start in October. So I'm going to cover it till the beginning of October and then do a new poll. And if you want me to continue with whatever series this is, if I'm not done with it, then you can just vote for the same series again. I'll keep that going on the channel. Or if you want a different new series, then vote for the different new series. So it's especially useful for things like anime, where if it's 12 episodes, I can just cover it weekly for that season, and then you can do a new anime. But it doesn't have to be anime. It can be manga, light novels, webtoons, anything really. Western comics, whatever it is that you want me to cover in that time slot, within reason, obviously. As long as it's something that is YouTube-able, then yeah, anything's pretty much cool with me. And in addition to that, there was something else I wanted to say along those lines, but now I'm forgetting it. So, yeah, I'll be covering those for 3 months at a time as the seasons go on. If you want me to continue on, just vote for that one again, and it's just a way to have, I don't really have anything to give patrons. A lot of the awards I see a bunch of other people putting on Patreon are things that I already kind of have for free. I already talked to you all for free. The Discord opens free and open for anyone. I'm not going to lock any of my content behind a paywall, so it's there's not really anything I can give you like that. So I was I can just do a new series a week and let patrons vote on it. So it's at least something, the smallest bit of something that I can do. And another small bit of something I can do that I wanted to bring up is here in the HaQ&As, something else they could be good for, because I've seen other people do it with videos like this and stuff. Just a shout out to new patrons at the beginning of the video. I'm thinking about that. I will shout out new patrons at the beginning of new videos if they're cool with it. I need to figure out if the patrons are cool with it, because I know some people don't like their names being just thrown out on videos and stuff. So as long as they're cool with it, I think I might do shout outs for new patrons at the beginning of HaQ&As, but again, I'm not sure. And in a related sort of general comment, Shadow Lugia 180 or 11 says, looks like you have a busy schedule ahead of you. I'm really glad to hear you're planning on doing the HaQ&As again. I've been a fan of them as a general video. Congratulations on getting a Patreon and best wishes with YouTube. I mean, thank you to start off. But also I wanted to throw this in here because I wanted to talk about and say kind of how the HaQ&As are really my favorite videos to make because it's just chill, it's just me talking to you all for about an hour. Like I said, it's helpful in a ton of different ways. It lets me talk about topics for different series that you want me to talk about that don't really, like most of the time, they're not things that are really deep enough to do their own video on anyway. And even if they are, it's just easy and good to throw them in here, but it lets me know exactly what you want me to talk about in that way. But one downside is they're also more difficult and time consuming to make compared to other videos because I have to figure out which comments I'm going to use and put them all together and stuff, and then record kind of a long video, edit it, make the title cards and all that. So it is a pretty, I don't even want to say difficult, but time-consuming video to make by a pretty long shot. So that's the reason I've been wanting to bring the HaQ&As back weekly for forever, because they're a video that I really want to build the other videos in the channel around. I want to have the HaQ&A sort of a central pillar where I can just talk about general stuff with all of you in your, like, that's not the best way to describe it, but talk about things you want to talk about, answer comments and questions and all that. To do it in that way is something I want as sort of the center point, and all the live reactions and reviews and stuff will be sort of revolving around it. And that's something I forgot to mention earlier with the series that patrons are voting on. You can tell me too if you want me to do reviews on it or reactions, read-throughs, whatever type of video you want to. Because I know for anime, I typically do reviews because I feel like I'm just not good at reactions for that kind of thing. I've done an occasional video reaction, and I just don't feel like I'm very good at it. And with like manga and stuff, I can do reviews of that, but I typically do read-throughs of it and discuss it as I'm reading through it. But yeah, whichever way you want me to cover those things is cool with me too. Is there anything else that I'm saying a lot? Is there anything else I'm forgetting here? I'm just looking through some things. Yeah, oh, the reason I can finally bring it back now is I'm finally getting caught up with all of my other stuff. I've had just such a wave of backlog stuff that I had been wanting to do and hadn't been able to do yet. Like making a Patreon in general was a big one that I had been wanting to do since like not even this February, but last February. That I just hadn't got around to doing until now. So now that I'm finally caught up with all that other stuff, I feel like I have enough time to do the HaQ&As weekly again. So that's why they're finally coming back now. And next up, before I get into the series by series comments and questions and topics and stuff, I wanted to talk about my top 3, kind of almost top 4 favorite anime and manga main characters. Now, I'm basically stealing this topic because Nayade Hemmings did it on stream the other day with a couple of the guys that are usually in their streams. I think maybe it was Laz, Vince, and Lizard were in it. But I'm not sure. I haven't watched through the whole thing yet because it was just the night before last, and it was kind of late, so I didn't have time to jump in and insert myself into his video, and I haven't had time to watch all of it yet, but I really like the topic, so I'm kind of stealing it. I would say go watch that video on demand from that stream. I'll leave a link to it in the comments where I put the timestamps. I'll put a link to that there to make it easier for you to all go and check that out too. But they did their top 10. A top 10 would be so hard for me to think about. I'm not a big main character guy. I'm a really big side character guy, and even more than that, ensemble casts. I love when we just have the story of a cast or the story of a world where some characters can leave or can die off, and we can just continue on with the story. Kind of like as much as I shit on the Naruto franchise, one thing I like is that as a concept, I like Boruto because it's like, I like the story of a world. Just give us this world, and when we're done with one set of characters, let us move on and do some other characters. Or sort of, I feel like the Walking Dead TV show kind of um, takes that approach where some characters that are very main and important can leave or can die off, but we'll continue telling the story of the world, even if it's a lot of side stories. So I really sort of like that conceptually. I really like ensemble casts and the stories of worlds. So there are few main characters that I feel really strongly about in support of, and instead of just talking about, oh, I like this character because of this, I like this character because of this, my top three and kind of top four have a lot of similarities. And so it got me thinking, okay, what are sort of the key underlying traits? What are the central things that they all have in common that turn out to be what I like and what I think is really good in a main character? So my top three, I would say, are Tsunayoshi Sawada, Guts, and Lugosi from Katekyo Hitman Reborn, Berserk, and BStars, respectively. And in fourth place, that's kind of similar to those three in a lot of the ways that I'm going to be talking about, is Luffy from One Piece. Now, there are still other main characters I like. I really like, of course, Yusuke Urameshi, or again, as much as I give him shit, I don't think Naruto's all that bad. Now, Izuku Midoriya could be a potential fifth depending on how the story goes, because there are some things that have been done well with Izuku and some not done well in comparison to Luffy and the three I mentioned that are my top three. So some good things about all of these three. For Tsunayoshi, it's very, very common that we see with main characters that I think Naruto's a good example of this, and Izuku's maybe a little bit of a good example of this, but Izuku's done better than Naruto, but not really as well as Tsuna, and that's that a character that's a main character in these shonen type manga and anime will have this personality, and they'll get stronger, they'll get wiser over the course of the series, but their personality won't really change. Naruto is the same Naruto, he's just wiser, he's stronger, but he's still the same Naruto at heart. But Tsuna is different in that he was a good person to begin with, and he's still a good person, but it's not just that he gets stronger, it's not just that he gets wiser, his personality itself changes. He changes as a person to the point where even his personality is different. And I think it was developed in a really good, really slow build way so that it feels so satisfying, where at the beginning of the series he's useless Tsuna who can't do anything and just cries about everything. Then by the end of the series we see him he's still a really kind person and has a lot of similarities to his original self, obviously, but he's more confident in like every way, and his just general demeanor is very different. And I think that that's kind of being done a little bit with Izuku, but not as well as it was done with Tsuna. But it's one of the reasons I would say Tsuna is in my top three. Now for Guts, it's more of a different situation where I'm going to talk about how all three of these are different and why I love all three, but then get into sort of the central themes that I think bring all three and Luffy together. But then with Guts, he's a character that's done some things and does some things that I disagree with, that I'm not totally all in on. He believes some things that I don't necessarily believe, and yet at the same time, I always cheer for him. I am always rooting for him so hard, when a lot of times I'm like not rooting for the main character. I want to see the villain actually accomplish something, or the person the main character is against accomplish something. So it's really good to always be behind the main character and really want them to succeed. And for Guts, it's a situation where it gets into those central themes. It always feels like he deserves it. It always feels like he's an underdog, that he's trying to fight against the odds. So no matter how much you can disagree with some of the things he thinks or does, he's just got so much stacked against him that you can't help but to root for him, because in the world that he's in, as bad as it is, he's just trying to live. It's a very, very simple, just trying to live against a horrible fate situation almost. And then for Lugosi, it's a situation where, again, it goes into those main themes where Lugosi's a failure. He fails at talking to girls. On the outset, you think he's just living in some crappy apartment and doesn't have a very good job and all that. He fails with girls. He didn't, with the way that, without trying to spoil too much, with the way that things with him in school worked out, you would say he's a failure in that way. He's been tricked and betrayed plenty of times. And it's that he constantly fails, but I don't know how to put this. It's like he fails plenty of times to build up sympathy, and it makes it feel better when he succeeds. And it's almost like he's failing in the eyes of the sort of crappy society, the way it can be that he's in, but though he's failing in the eyes of that society, he's building up and working through a lot of mental health issues with himself and with other characters. And so he's getting to be a lot stronger, both physically and, more importantly, mentally. And just like I think it was the chapter before last when he was talking about what's the key to everything that he's succeeding at, it's philosophy. And I like the way that he's sort of growing in a way that isn't just physical, but it's more about his growth mentally. That's really, really cool. But him being a failure that you can root for is kind of part of it that goes into my main themes that I'm going to get into now. You look at Luffy, and one of the best things about Luffy is that he fails all the time. He fails often, and there's nothing better than watching Luffy get his ass kicked twice and then come back with a new game plan, with a new set of skills that he's trained up, and then to get the win with this new plan that he's come up with after failing twice. There's nothing better than seeing him succeed after failing. And I think that's where Izuku's character was doing okay in early Boku no Hero Academia, where it's not that he failed very often, but he would have these big setbacks. His injuries, his losses of other people, those things would be big setbacks, and he would have to overcome those setbacks, and having those setbacks made it feel even better when he overcame them. But then you get to, like, I will take the joint training arc as a really big negative example. I think Izuku's character stood to gain so much by losing. He deserved to get set back so much there, because him getting set back, him losing there, would build up whoever beat him really well, and also not only build up whoever beat him, but give him a reason to change, give him a reason to think through what went wrong and grow. So by all accounts, he really should have lost there, and it feels like he's been winning just way too much recently. It feels like Izuku hasn't been facing those setbacks recently, and I think that's somewhere that his character is going wrong that Luffy's been handled well with. So these two main points that kind of build into one main point that I have are that those characters that I really like, Luffy, Tsuna, Guts, Lugosi, they're all underdogs in their world, and they all fail often. Luffy loses a lot and then comes back and gets a win. Tsuna is a loser, but then when he trains up, and there's just so many training arcs in KHR, but then when he trains up and succeeds at something, it feels like he deserves it. Guts, again, things go wrong for Guts time after time after time. So when things actually go somewhat, kind of a little bit right, it just makes it feel like he deserves it and he earned it. Same with Legoshi. He fails, he's betrayed so many times that when he succeeds, or when he has some sort of happiness come into his life, or when he makes some sort of progress mentally, it feels so earned and so deserved. Because the failure, my main point is the failure, the being an underdog as a character, builds this sympathy to make the success even better. It makes you feel sympathetic for the character, and it makes it feel like through all the losses that they've earned something, that they deserve every good thing they get. And it's where you could get into where I think Bomb from Tower of God isn't a very good main character, at least not anymore. Or you could say it about Naruto, you could definitely say it about Ichigo from Bleach, is that when they get something good, it doesn't always feel earned. It doesn't always feel deserved. It often feels given to them because they don't fail enough. They don't face enough setbacks. In Naruto, maybe not as much as Bomb or Ichigo. Or I think Goku is another bad example of this. Where a character just doesn't always feel like they earn everything. Doesn't always feel like they deserve everything because they don't face enough setbacks. So I think that's what's good, is rather than seeing a main character just run through enemies, that's not very exciting compared to seeing a character get betrayed by someone and you're like, oh, they better come back and destroy that person who betrayed them. Or seeing a character lose, like, rather than seeing a villain be put up and be like, oh, that's cool, I wonder how cool they are, and the main character just topples him over, and it's like, well, screw it, that villain never really got a chance to be cool. I'd much rather see Crocodile beat Luffy's ass twice, Luffy come up with a new strategy, take him down, and then it feels like he failed twice, he learned from mistakes he made, he came up with something new, he innovated, and then he won. So I think that's where characters like Luffy, Tsuna, Guts, Legoshi, I think it's where characters like those shine, and what makes a good main character, in my opinion, is somebody who feels like they deserve to be the main character, that they have earned being the main character through innovating, through learning from their mistakes, through growing. So again, I think that's where a lot of main characters go wrong, and I think that that is the trait that I've come to realize through thinking about who my favorite characters are. The trait that I've come to think, okay, that's what makes a good main character to me. So yeah, that was just a discussion I wanted to have, less about the three characters in specific, and more the general traits that I think makes them my favorite characters. So this, I knew it was going to be kind of a long discussion to get into, but I got into it, I went through it, and now it's time to actually talk about your comments and stuff from the various series that I cover here on the channel. First up, I've got a kind of short Fire Force section for all of you. So D-Man said, Maki is greater than Tamaki all day. Also, is Joker voiced by Accelerator? I can almost hear it in his voice. I may look this up later. And I think, I'm not sure how you got that confused, because I don't think he sounds a thing like him at all. But looking him up, I was like, his voice does sound like other characters, and he plays a lot of characters that I've seen in various anime before, but the most iconic I can picture his voice as now that I know it's the same voice actor, and now that I've been reminded of the character, now looking back at any scene with Joker so far in Fire Force, I cannot help but think of Fango from 91 Days. And I think, did I cover 91 Days on the channel? I think I did. But, oh, that was such a good show. And now all I can think of is Fango. Friggin' Fango was so crazy. What a good character. Fango was so good. But I forgot to mention, this reminded me, I forgot to mention in that video, I finally noticed last episode of Fire Force, I finally noticed that Shinra's voice actor was Asta from Black Clover. I finally realized, like, during that fight and stuff, I was like, he is just like one moment away from just yelling Mara Mara. So, Yeah, I had forgot to mention, I noticed, I was like, oh, he is very Asta. Not just that he has the same voice actor, but that his voice in general is extremely similar to the way he does Asta's voice. Um, but other than that, I just got like three oh yeah, and Maki, best girl by a mile. Maki is such a cool character, and Tamaki is such a not really cool character. I got like three other comments on that same video talking about Tamaki being poorly written, or one of the only poorly written characters in the show, or Tamaki being annoying. So yes, it does seem like the fandom very much dislikes Tamaki. And honestly, it's not like I'm like, grab the pitchforks, I hate her. It's just that she isn't very good. It's not that I'm gonna go out of my way to be like, oh, she's so bad. But I don't know. She was not very good. And the thing is, I think she has a pretty good character design. I like her voice actress. I feel like so much could be done right about the character. But the way it's been written so far and the way she might be written in the future, I just their character's not being done very well story-wise. Next up, we got a Magical Girl Raising Project section that we're starting off with Mark Ryan Labranda, who asked, you still think Madoka's better than MGRP? And yes, but maybe. It depends on what you mean, kind of. I think in terms of just, here's a story, how is that story all developed? Madoka's better, because Madoka's better than like most stories when it comes to just a story. But Magical Girl Raising Project is different. It's a long-running series. It has things that Madoka doesn't really delve into in terms of having this world building or having amazing arcs like, say, Restart, and having good stories that span multiple different arcs, whereas MGRP is basically just one story. It's like, I just mentioned 91 Days in the last section. It's like comparing 91 Days that told a really, really good 12-episode story, and that's all it is. It's just a really good story. Comparing that to One Piece, who, when it comes to telling one really good story, I don't know if you can say it can compare to a 12-episode thing, but you've got to respect it in a different way in that it tells such a long story with multiple arcs and multiple different stories that span through arcs. So it's a very different thing. It's hard to compare Magical Girl Raising Project and Madoka, because just one singular small story, Madoka's going to be better than almost anything, but Magical Girl Raising Project is different. It's a long-running story with various different stories making it up. No, I'm sorry if I can't pronounce your name correctly. Thamford Dithpray. I'm like, are they trying to? I don't think they're trying to make a Thamford Dithpray joke. I think their name is actually Thamford Dithpray, but I'm sorry if I pronounced your name really incorrectly. But they said, I fucking love Uluru, trust me, she's a great character. And Slacker Artwork also said, I'm so happy you love Uluru, honestly. Probably my second favorite character in the series. Really looking forward to how you react to her in the future. I decided to throw both of these in because I love Uluru. Uluru is so good. I think she's probably one of my favorites already, and she could be my favorite, my overall favorite, I think, if I liked her physical design more. I'm not all that into Uluru's physical character design. Next up, we have a Boku no Hero Academia section. This one could be a little bit on the longer side. But I'm starting off with Slayer Nominee, who said, Hey Haku, it's been too long since my last comment on Tower of God. 7-week courses are terrible for college. I recently just got into My Hero Academia, and I'm slightly disappointed in this arc. The Liberation Army's been well established since its arrival. It has an established hierarchy, a lot of members, and the resources to gather information about other people fairly quickly, to know how Shigaraki's quirk works. As strong as Shigaraki is, I think the experience of Redestro alone should be enough to create a gap between them. But Shigaraki, even worn out, is able to take an 80% Redestro. I'm all for development, but he should have a tougher time, and then to only be saved by the giant beast of a villain, it seems like the army's going to be squashed in the end here soon, but they could be an interesting third party in the mix of heroes and villains. And there's a lot I agree with there. I pretty much agree with all of that sentiment, but I still think that things might turn out okay. So I agree in the sense that the Liberation Army, they're really well written, and they're well written in a way that would lend itself well in the story for them just playing innocent in the public eyes, like we are just the heads of all these companies. We're not some evil group trying to overthrow the system. Just to play innocent in the eyes of the public, but being antagonistic towards the heroes and the villains in secret. That would be a really good story that they could have done, and they could possibly still do, rather than just have this large fight. But there are a lot of things I don't mind. I don't mind Shigaraki being able to survive a hit from Redestro, because he seems pretty messed up and injured from all the attacks he's been taking, and also because we've seen characters like Bakugo, for example, I know for sure, they're able to, even though like super endurance or whatever isn't part of Bakugo's quirk, he's able to be put through concrete walls and basically be uninjured afterward. So the series is pretty much established that a part of having quirks or a part of this world is just that some people can take damage that in real life a real person wouldn't be capable of taking. A real person, their body would break before the concrete wall did, so they wouldn't be able to just be put through a concrete wall. So there's some sort of disbelief you have to suspend with people in this world are just physically capable of taking more damage than a real person in the real world is. But my hope with the Liberation Army is that at this point, I don't think they're going to be able to stay the way they could have been if this conflict had never happened, but I think they could be recruited into the League of Villains, which is good. So then we can get them playing innocent and doing what I said before, just working for the villains and being against the heroes. And I think that we can kind of have it both ways. We can have the development that the League of Villains gets from this fight, and also have the Liberation Army to play an interesting future role if they're not all just killed. So I think them not just being killed is a possibility that could be good for the future story. And Slayer Nominee said further after that that would be an interesting outcome, Shigaraki giving Redestro an ultimatum of either joining or being destroyed, and the Liberation Army, or with the Liberation Army behind the League, they'd get a huge boost in strength and resources. And they say, I'm wondering if Redestro would know anything about Hawks and his double agent work, because that'd put him in good standing with Shigaraki. I still think having them be an independent party would be more interesting, playing their cards to help or hinder the League or the heroes, while furthering their own goals. I totally agree with that, but I think maybe the best hope for the Liberation Army right now is that Shigaraki says it would be a waste to just destroy you when I need people to basically be henchmen. I need this infrastructure that you have to work for me. And of course that would be something that I think Gigantomachia and Ujiko would respect, because it's kind of the thing that All for One would do. So I think that it kind of fulfills both roles. It develops the League of Villains, it provides something in the lore context that the League of Villains needs. They need that infrastructure and everything. And it also lets the Liberation Army continue and lets them still be interesting in the story. And two other sort of comments that are just things that I think are topics that I wanted to throw in. I've seen a lot of talk lately, and this is related to none of the comments or anything, or kind of related to some comments I've seen, but there were a lot of comments in general about what Shigaraki's endgame could be. Is he irredeemable? Should he have a redemption arc and all that? And I think endgame, rather than redemption, Shigaraki could find peace. Now we could find that alive, he could find it dead. I think he could find it alive though. I think endgame, the heroes have a good chance of potentially using the bullets that he took from Overhaul. They could use those bullets or Eddie's quirk to take away Shigaraki's quirk, so that even if he does spend the rest of his life in jail without the quirk, and sort of maybe him working through the issues of what went on with his family and being manipulated by All for One, I think that he could get a happy ending even if he isn't redeemed. he could still have a happy ending even if he's not redeemed or has a redemption arc, by him losing his quirk and sort of finding inner peace with himself and with the life he has lived or had taken away from him. So I think, again, it's not something where he has to be killed. He could spend the rest of his life in jail even, or they could decide you're not a threat anymore without your quirk. I think that as long as he finds peace, that's sort of a good end game for Shigaraki. It doesn't necessarily need to be redemption or helping the heroes, but at least peace with his life. So I think that would be a good ending, and a possible one. And another thing I wanted to bring up is a theory that I threw in the comments that I don't really have any evidence to back up, but recently we saw that Shigaraki had killed those two guys, and All For One said, oh, one of the hands was destroyed, and he gives them 5 hands. And he said, so I gave you some extra ones. So my theory, the extra set of hands were Nana's. I don't know if only one hand was Nana's, and he was talking about the other one of Nana's hands being destroyed, or if one of the random thugs that Shigaraki killed, his hand was destroyed, and so both of those hands were Nana's. But either way, that's my theory for those, that they were Nana's hands. Now, of course, I don't really have any evidence for this. I don't know how it works in the timeline, or if the timeline of that doesn't work. It's just my personal guess of things. Next up, real quick, I have one One Piece comment. Renan says, I can see the Straw Hats rescuing Big Mom and teaming up against Kaido at his island. Big Mom isn't as bad as Kaido, so I think there could be a truce between them, or them being her and the Straw Hats. Also, it seems too soon for Luffy to reach Kaido's level. And I could see that too, and I think that's good, because it's good to see Luffy face a loss and come back stronger, but even coming back stronger, I don't know if that's going to be strong enough to take down Kaido, at least alone. But if he takes down Kaido working with others, that could be really good too. But I am more okay now with him teaming up with Big Mom, but there's a big if there, and that's if Big Mom teaming up with the Straw Hats comes from Big Mom being developed or getting development where she becomes more like her Olin self, where she becomes more good. Because we saw that Olin was selfless, Olin was caring, so if Big Mom gets development where she becomes more like what her Olin self was, and then teams up with the Straw Hats, then I'm all for that. If it's asshole Big Mom, no. If Big Mom legitimately sort of develops and changes a bit, then yes. So that's where I am with my thoughts on the team up. At first I didn't like the idea of it at all, but I've come around to thinking if Big Mom, because we've seen her get some new development, if she gets more new development like that, then I would definitely be okay with it. And next up we have a B-Star section. First up, Daniel Minagiti saying sexiest chapter about, I believe it was chapter 127, the one with the Utsugi story, and yes, possibly so, Utsugi, very sexy for sure. Utsugi was a top tier waifu. Next, Zarn Vladak says, I hope the other characters from the school can show up again. I miss them. And I threw this in because this is a very common type of comment. Common type of comment that I see a lot. I see a lot of people say all the time that they want to see more of the school characters, and I say it myself in a lot of videos. I miss the school characters. I would love to see more of them, and the hidden Kondo characters too, because I love the hidden Kondo characters so much. I want to see so much more of them, but I think BStars does a good job of that, of just telling different side stories with different characters from all around, and sometimes some characters don't show up for a while, but then they come back into the story for a while, and that's just the way that BStars is, and I think it's done really well. So I have hope we'll see more of the school characters. Maybe not as much as I'd like, maybe not as much as other people would like, but I definitely think we'll see more of them, and the same goes for the hidden Kondo characters. And lastly, Troll Film Production says, finally caught up thanks to your videos. Thanks. This story was way better than I thought it was going to be, and thank you for watching all the videos. And I totally agree, because I started The Promised Neverland and BStars around the same time. And this is one of those things where they both started around the same time, and I think it was like 2017 where BStars was cleaning up and winning like every manga award, and the only other series coming close was The Promised Neverland was winning a lot of awards, but not quite as much as BStars. BStars was destroying it, and I expected The Promised Neverland to be way better. I just thought it was going to be way better, but as I continued reading both of them, The Promised Neverland's still good. Some of my funnest read-throughs are The Promised Neverland read-throughs that, like, nobody watches. Because, like, barely anybody watches my Promised Neverland videos. But I love doing them, which is why I still do them, of course. Both for the people that do watch them and because I love doing them. And I love reading The Promised Neverland. So it's really good. I love it. But BStars ended up being, I will say, my favorite manga right now. With all the other stuff I read, BStars is probably my personal favorite right now. Next up, we finally have our Tower of God section, and my voice is dying on me. So hopefully, my voice can continue going throughout this discussion. But our first comment for Tower of God is Renan saying, I wish we could have seen Deng Deng fight at least once before he disappeared. And I guess disappeared meaning taken and then now dead. But I totally agree, because they said Deng Deng was the most powerful Rugrat, but we legit never saw him do anything at all. Deng Deng never did anything. So yeah, I wish we could have seen him do something before he died after being built up to be the most powerful Rugrat. It definitely would have made his story more feelsy too when he did die, at least for now. But more on Deng Deng I think later in the comments here. But the next comment is from Akash Panda, who said, the girl with the FUG elder could be his guide. She has red hair, maybe she's a red witch. I'm thinking the same thing. I think it would be cool to see another red witch too, and I think it would be a cool thing if we know the silver dwarves have this relationship where they're often paired up with princesses. It'd be cool to see red witches have a similar relationship with FUG, where important FUG members have sort of a red witch guide, like Waryun is for Bomb pretty much. Then next up, Shadow Lugia 18011 says, Grande's the because I had struggled with which one was which. Grande's the female one, Venti's the big one, and Tall's the blue one. Tall has very little distinctive features. He's probably my least favorite of the three so far. Kun becoming a healer seems kind of forced to me, but I suppose if you say that the Ranker from the Yeon family had a healing ability, and maybe the ability was somewhat transferred to Kun and he could use it, I still feel like it's a stretch. Like you said, I want more strategist or ice wizard Kun and less new stuff. It's similar to Bomb in Season 2. I'd rather see development of what we have than an addition of new things to develop later on. And with the pace of the story, they'll probably end up being developed off screen. I like the addition of blue holes. Not a huge fan of the name though. I'm sure it'll grow on me. And Slayer Nominee also added into the discussion saying, I'm not a fan of that name either. CU chooses a lot of water and ocean theme names for things like positions, but this just seems random. I would have preferred no class at all. So yeah, now my thoughts on that. I don't mind the healing powers, but I really think they maybe should have gone to somebody other than Kunagro Agnes if they were going to be put in the story, because I feel like the healing powers are something that could have been used to develop a side character that doesn't have much other stuff going on. Kun has plenty going on. He didn't need the Firefish. He didn't need the healing powers on top of all the other stuff he's got going on. So I think it could have been used to develop a different character. Because for me, Kun just got the ice powers and we've barely seen them. So I would much rather see his ice powers used and developed more, and the Firefish used to develop somebody else. Because to me, I feel like this might be getting into discussion for another comment, so I might just leave it short with what I'm about to say. But it feels like Kun worked for and trained for the Enakor, he worked for and trained for the ice powers, so to have him given the healing powers and to be able to use them like he uses them, I think this is getting into something for another comment, so I think the next comment actually, so I'll save it for my discussion for the next comment. But to talk about the name Blue Hole, I don't mind it. I actually kind of like it, because it fits with Tower of God's naming structure of everything being very similar to oceanic stuff, and it, to me, evokes the image when they say like the blue hole rankers or whatever, it just gives me the image of like this deep ocean abyss. And I think it works because if high rankers are given fish epithets, then people that are strong enough to be high rankers but can't really be ranked are in the blue hole. They're fish too, but they're just mysterious in that deep ocean abyss. But the next, I think, similar and very related comment comes from CoolFood270, who said, the Deng Deng and bomb stuff feels super forced. Maybe it's because Siu was rushing things a lot, but I wish he put more emphasis on Deng Deng and Louis instead of bomb. And about AA's healing fire, I'm cool with him being the one who has it, but the way it's used feels like it's just too fast. Like all the other abilities require training. It's luck that people get new power, but it takes work to use it efficiently. Look at his ice. He awakened the ice when fighting a dumbed-down Viol, and he put up a good fight, but he still needed lots of training before he could use it to one-shot a boss monster. I don't remember the boss monster that they're referring to, but their point remains the same, and their point remains right, in my opinion. But they continue, he just awakens this power, but then 20 minutes later he can throw the fire and heal a high ranker, and I guess they're a high ranker. I don't know if they're a regular ranker, but I think they're a high ranker, probably, if they're the fourth leader. But they said even Yiwa can't do that, and her flame awakens too in Hell Train, but she doesn't have full control over it. And of course, again, her flame isn't healing, but because I know that some people might use this as a counterpoint, her flame doesn't have anything to do with healing, but again, she still doesn't have full control over it, and yet Kun can control this very easily already. I totally agree with all of that. All of it. I think that developing Deng Deng and Louis' relationship would have made way more sense, and it was something that it seemed like almost everybody agreed on, even if they really liked the storyline right now, that the whole Deng Deng being like, oh, but Bomb reached out to me and stuff didn't make much sense, because Deng Deng didn't really know Bomb that well, and it didn't really seem to be all that important, because we hadn't developed Deng Deng much before that happened, let alone even developed him all that much afterward. But if instead of him being like, but Bomb reached out to me, I want to see Bomb again and stuff, make it about him and Louis' relationship, and how Louis, being his best friend, carried him through life even though he knew about having Doom's heart. It would have made way more sense, and it would have made us care a lot more about Deng Deng and Louis, instead of Louis just disappearing this arc. Louis has just vanished. So yeah, that's something that would have made way more sense if this was used to develop Deng Deng and Louis' relationship instead of the weird Bomb stuff being thrown in, honestly. And for Kun's power, this is what I was getting at with the comment before. It's a situation where I kind of like and agree with what they said, where even if a character gets a power-up randomly, like if Bomb just gets a random new power-up, if they have to work for it to make that power be effective, then it kind of makes it okay. So like Kun with Enakor, he had to work and train for it, and Kun with the ice powers, he found out he had ice powers, but he had to train to really be able to use those ice powers. So again, yeah, it's something where even if he did get this flame power randomly, maybe it's more okay if he trains, but it makes it even more weird that he just gets this flame power up, and now he can use it very effectively. He can essentially bring a very powerful ranker back to life, and at what appears to be near full strength by the way she was fighting. So yeah, not only do I think giving it to somebody else could have been used to give their character importance, but even if you do give it to Kunagru Agnes, it's just very odd to give him this power and to not have him work for it when we saw him work for the ice stuff, and because he was in his little box for the longest time, he wasn't able to really show off those ice powers enough yet, in my opinion. But next up we have another comment from Coolfu270, who says, I like how CU uses a special dialogue bubble for Kelhelm. I imagine he has some kind of echo when he speaks, and this episode proves my point that CU only put thought into Jordan's transformation. The rest are just random gibberish because they're all side characters anyway, lol. And I agree with both those, well, to a point I agree with both those points. I love how Kelhelm has special dialogue bubbles. Again, I've talked so much about how the character actually seems different from others, actually seems important, and that's great. It really helps the story a lot when the antagonist feels different, feels important, feels special. So I like that even have something as simple as doing different dialogue bubbles, it makes Kelhelm feel important, it makes him feel different, because it makes it feel like he's important enough for CU to do something different stylistically with. And that adds to the character in a good way. Also, my opinion, Jordan's been one of the best things in this arc. Yeah, to me, Jordan's just been one of the best parts of this arc. I just really enjoy his character, I enjoy the scenes with him, and it seems like we could get into some cool, more serious stuff with him now that he's overheard what Bam and Yama were talking about. Also, the K9 people's transformation names, and, well, the designs obviously, but the names can be really out there. Next up, we got two more comments, both from Alpha Cent 007. First comment from Alpha Cent 007 is, hopefully Deng Deng stays dead. Tower of God seems to lack consequence. Hopefully Kun doesn't bring him back to life with Lewis's heart. I totally agree. It would add consequence and add weight if Deng Deng stayed dead. So I totally agree with you, but I don't think he will stay dead. I think Louis is probably going to give him back his original heart. He's going to be back alive. So do I think Deng Deng should stay dead? Yes. Do I think he will? Absolutely no. There's very little chance of it, in my opinion. And then lastly, for Tower of God this week, Alpha Cent 007 said, or asked, what do you think happened to White? I thought he was with Karaka. And this is honestly a good one to end on. Honestly, I have no clue. It could be like anything, because he's just gone, so it could be anything. His goal is to take down Hone, so if he hasn't gone after REA Hone yet, I would assume he'd just be hanging out around Karaka. Maybe he's just still hanging out on the on Madarako's ship for all we know. But it has been a little bit of time, so some of my guesses, maybe he's out collecting souls to become more powerful. He could be doing that. Or he could be doing like what Evankel was doing. He could be out trying to collect allies like what Evankel was doing, because they're going to need allies to stand against Zahard's group. So that could be another real possibility. But like I said, it could be anything. He could just be chilling on Madarako's ship still while all this is going on. He could be collecting souls, could be collecting allies like what Evankel was doing. Who knows? But it's a very good question. So thank you everyone for those comments, and we got one more section before the video ends. Alright, last section, last little bit in the video is a Walking Dead comic section. First off, Rocket Raccoon says, Carl and Sophia happening was the best part of 193. And I'm gonna say that Carl x Sophia was one of the very, very few things that I disliked about the ending to The Walking Dead, that I disliked about that final chapter. Because Carl and Lydia's relationship was developed. A lot of time was spent on it over the course of just arcs upon arcs. A lot of time on panel was spent on their relationship, whereas Sophia was in the story basically since the start of the story, but she got very little development, next to no development even. So her relationship with Carl feels super forced. It feels like one of those things of, oh yeah, the childhood sweethearts, the childhood friends end up together, and that feels very, very forced and very overdone. I've seen it happen so many times. It feels very, very forced. And it just doesn't feel developed, whereas Carl and Lydia's relationship was very developed. And it feels like that development, even though I love their friendship in 193, I feel like there was so much development done that now feels like a little bit of a waste, because they didn't end up together. And the second and last comment for this section and this video is Pavel Zahariev, or Zahariev, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but Pavel Zahariev, saying, that was an awesome finale. As for what's next, maybe do top 10s about the comic books, top 10 characters, top 10 issues, etc. There aren't many lists of that kind that are up to date, and it'd be cool to do that now that The Walking Dead is over. And I would love to do something like that. I still haven't done my review of 193 because it is insanely long, and doing a review is going to be an insanely long process. So last month I had my reaction. Sometime this month I want to get the review for 193 up, and I think it'd be a good idea for me to do a The Walking Dead video every month. That's something that I'm going to try my best for my people that are here on the channel that are fans of The Walking Dead, that maybe even came to the channel originally because of The Walking Dead, because I used to cover it way more, doing weekly videos on like every show. But I'm going to try to do at least one video for The Walking Dead a month. Whether it's the comics, whether it's the TV show, whether it's Fear, because I love Fear. I almost maybe would argue that I like Fear more than the main show sometimes. I really, really do like Fear. So yeah, whether it's a top 10 video where it's a discussion of a certain thing, I want to try to do at least one Walking Dead video per month. And this month, my goal, my project to try to work on will be a review of 193, but that is just, that's quite daunting. It's a very large chapter. It's the end of the series, so a review of that is really, really daunting. But yeah, that's it. That was it for my last question and my last topic here. So I hope you all that are stuck through to the end here have enjoyed this. I really hope you have enjoyed it. And it feels really, really good to have the HaQ&A back. Now comes the hard part, though, editing this whole, like, bitch of a 1 hour plus recording. Editing it all together and figuring stuff out for it. That's going to be, again, quite a daunting task. So yeah, I suppose that's it. Like if you did like the video, comment down there to tell me what you thought of any of this discussion here. Join in the discussion, or if you want me to talk about anything in next week's HaQ&A, comment that. Subscribe for more of all of any of this and much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. I can try to keep you updated there and stuff with the channel or talk to you there. If you want a link to our Discord server to talk to me or more of us on Discord about anything, just ask. It's free and open for anyone. And it would totally help out if you wanted to join the Patreon. Link will be in the description, and I might just be cheeky and throw it in the comments too. Join the Patreon if you want to join in on the voting and the suggesting for a new series on Sunday, and just in general to help keep the channel running. It would totally help out a lot, and it's really mind-blowingly amazing that anyone wants to help keep everything going. It's a really, really cool feeling that I have to try to not get stressed out about, that I'm like, oh no, I really need to live up to their expectations now. But yeah, if you want to help out on Patreon, it would be so very appreciated, so very helpful, and you can join in on helping me select something to throw in that Sunday slot. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I'll see you all next time.